Peace and love, family, peace and love. So I posted this on my stories, and a lot of people had a lot of questions about it. And it's really hard to explain in written form. It's exhausting. It could be overwhelming for people who don't study the practice or are a professional occultist. And not only that, but it's just a lot to kind of get into to do through text. And since I'm in the process of now putting a lot of the occult information out and building this community and being more consistent with the content, I figured that this would be the perfect time and to make a whole video that explains this. So every time the sun traverses a different zodiac sign, I break down the energy into what you see here. What this represents is, if you can see the sun, it's meta consciousness. So let's say if this is the line, anything above that would be meta consciousness. That's what the sun represents. Anything below the line is your subconscious. That is what the moon represents. Both of them together in harmony represents consciousness. A lot of people think the sun represents consciousness. That's just one half. So when the sun is traversing, I always consider the energy of the sun and the moon to be able to better understand what the construct we live in is trying to bring to my consciousness and what effects it has on my vitality. So when you understand the concept of, follow Jesus and the 12 disciples, they're referring to following the sun through the 12 zodiac. So this chart, while it's traversing Virgo season at the time, is what breaks down this energy so I can better understand it depending on where it's going or where it's at in the constellation of Virgo. Now, let me also explain that depending on when you watch this, it is Friday, September 27th, 2024. You may think that we're in Libra season, and that is far from the truth. This video is not going to explain more about that, but what you're following is the Western tropical dates. Those are not accurate. We're following the sidereal dates, and you have to know enough about the precession of the equinoxes to understand that these dates that I'm showing you are accurate and the ones you're used to is not accurate. So to begin, the sun is traversing the sign of Virgo at this current point of time. So this is the sign and this symbol, Virgo. And I'm going to explain what each level means going down, and then we can go through the whole entire thing. So we're in Virgo season. The sun is traversing Virgo between the dates of September 16th and October 16th of this year. It changes by a day or two depending on the year. So depending on when you're watching this, it may not be those dates of that year. So we're traversing Virgo season. Now this here are indicators to me, and when I'm breaking this down, that in the 30 degrees of Virgo energy, half of that is influenced by Leo's energy, which is the sign that precedes Virgo. And the other half is influenced by the Libra energy, which is the sign that is ahead of Virgo. So what you see here is that even though, yes, we're in Virgo energy is very complex. That's why it has so many different keywords. But this is what splits the half. So the first half is mixed with Leo energy, and the second half is mixed with Libra energy. So you can kind of think about, let's say if you're in 15 degrees Virgo, this is the present line. Before that is the past. After that is the future, right? So that's what this necessarily symbolizes. So everything from this line here, everything down has this energy aligned to it. Everything down from the Libra has the Libra energy aligned to it. And everything that occurred in Leo's season will be very evident here. Everything that will occur in Libra season, like as far as like preparation, will occur here. So a simple form is just understanding Virgo energy. But it is so simple that the average person and the common person who is ignorant to all of this is so simple you can't use it. So you have to understand its complexities to better understand its simplicities, right? So the sign Leo precedes Virgo, and the sign Libra is what is ahead of Virgo, and they influence the 30 degrees of Virgo, okay? These three are the elements of Virgo. So a third, which is 10 degrees, is more influenced by what Virgo represents. So once we understand all this energy, what Virgo represents, this energy will be heavily influenced by it. What Capricorn represents, the 10th degree to 20 degrees, will be influenced by that energy. What Taurus represents, the 20 degree to 30 degree, will be influenced by that energy. So let me explain these two right here so it's better to understand. In Leo season, we were bestowed with a high level of vitality, with a high level of energy, with a high level of confidence. We were just given massive amount of energy. Now, your limitations and your ability to process it depends on the state of being of how your whole energetic being is comprised with all of the elements. So it's different things to different people. But Leo energy was raw energy. So the first half is requiring Virgo to refine that because it's untamed, raw potential and energy. So now, during the first 15 days or 15 degrees of of Virgo, it is asking you to refine that energy. After that, you're preparing for Libra. So you have to take that refined energy and align with it. Now that's refined. You can't align with something that has no limits. There's nothing there to align with. So Virgo is the process of taking untapped, untamed, raw energy and putting it in an earthly format so you have something to align with, bind to, and anchor to during Libra. That is that process. So throughout the days of Virgo, you understand that half of it is that and half of it is this. These are the deacons. These two aren't the deacons. These three and everything below are deacons. So these are the deacons, these are subdeacons, and these are subdeacons. All right. Excuse me. These three are the deacons. This is something completely different. Like these are different, and these are the subdeacons. So Virgo, Capricorn, Taurus, and all of this line here are deacons. These are the deacons. These are the subdeacons. I'll explain this in a second. So now in Virgo, from 0 degrees to 10 degrees, 10 degrees to 20 degrees, 20 degrees to 30 degrees, you're going to get 3 different energies that exist within these halves. So the first is going to be more so about analyzing. Virgo is very particular, precise, meticulous. You have to analyze everything you experience during Leo season. How can you refine something you have no analytical data of? Okay? That's the first 10 degrees. Everything that came from this, you're practicing analyzing it. Then Capricorn is about applying force. This is when you're testing it. This is when you're refining it. This is when you're trying to see its conditions and you're changing things. Maybe it's something new. Maybe it's something that already existed. Who knows? This is also the aspect of flawlessness and perfection. Okay, so flawlessness and perfection. So any of your flaws, you're going to notice is going to come out in the first 15 degrees of Virgo. So Capricorn is about putting that action in to test all of that in which you have analyzed. Then with Taurus, which is the grounding energy, you are now embedding those things. You are now anchoring these things. You are now materializing what you were inspired by, putting in that work, and now you're getting the results to it. The reason is because remember when I said with Libra, it is about aligning in that which you refine from Leo's energy. You can't align with anything if it's not materialized. So that is why the Taurus represents the materialization in which you're going to align with. Got that? So this is the deacons, the 3 deacons. These 4 here are just different aspects of the moon. Okay? So this is the first half of the moon. If you want to look at it like the first 15 is from new moon to full moon. In an ideal sense, that's not exactly how the moon is working through this, but ideally it's new moon to full moon, back to new moon. So this is the rise, the waxing, this is the waning, okay? That is going to be evident with the first quarter, the full, which is at this point. So this is the rising into the first, this is the rising into the full, this is the descending into the third, and this is the returning back into the noon. So these are evident with the feminine of the moon, up and down, and these are the 4 quarters of the moon. So that's why during new moons right here, you're going to know that the moon is always going to be in Virgo. The first quarter moon, as long as the sun is in Virgo, will always be in Sagittarius. The full moon, as long as the sun is in Virgo, will always be in Pisces. And the third quarter moon, as long as the sun is in Virgo, will always be in Gemini. How I have learned to break this down is during these transits, you have the the primitive zone, which is where you're more into the superficial space, which is with the new moon. That is going to be when you're going to notice all of the details. Whenever there's the new moon, because it's both the moon and the sun is in Virgo, right? What happens is now is as the moon moves through the rest of the signs, it changes your meta consciousness. It changes your meta conscious awareness. When it enters Sagittarius, it suppresses Sagittarius energy. So it reduces your ability to apply focus. It reduces the access you have to motivation. It reduces your ability to navigate because it wants you to slow down, be present, so it can support what the sun's energy is providing you, which is fine detail. It's slowing that down. So your Sagittarius energy, depending on how much of it, is going to be compromised, and it could be detrimental or it could be beneficial. It allows you to focus on different things. When the moon is in Pisces, your awareness subconsciously is in your higher self. Anything beyond the physical. This is where you get your guidance. This is where you get your insight. That's what that represents, right? And then Gemini, since Sagittarius and Gemini are on opposite sides, they're dualities like Virgo and Pisces. If this is suppressed, Gemini is amplified, which is why during Virgo season, your motivation, your drive, your will to move forward or to foresee things, anything that is the Sagittarius energy, that's going to be compromised in favor for your Gemini energy, which is going to allow you to be more receptive to resonance. This is why Virgo is just also the assistive religious sign of the whole entire zodiac. So those are the 4 energies. These are the sub-deacons. So there's a reason why when we are in Virgo season, depending on what degree the sun is in, the sun's expression is going to be different. It is not just going to be about precision, analytical data, because it's a flow. Everything in life is a process, it's in a flow. The subdeacons express all of that for us. So you always put, no matter what sign we're in, the first sign is this. Then from 2.5 and every 2.5 degrees, the signs change. So from Virgo all the way to Leo, this is the order of the zodiac. Right now today, we are at 10 degrees in Virgo. So when I look at this chart, I understand the sun's subdeacon is within Capricorn, all right? Because this is the suppressive zone of motivation and focus. I understand that from 7.5 to 15, all of this is going to be suppressive energy in regards to my movement, my foresight, and my focus, all right? On top of that, I'm still also responsible for applying and shifting and refining everything that I experience in the first 10, okay? And I know it's still coming with inspiration from everything that happened during Leo season. So it's very complex. I understand this very well. A lot of people who don't know nothing about the symbols, you have to understand so you see how all of this expresses Virgo energy? You have to understand all of this in its complexity for each and every single one of these signs in order for you to even understand the expression of one of these subdeacons. This is why when I tell people I've been practicing and utilizing and learning this for the past 6 years, I would say 5 years consistently, that I've been practicing astrology with, not to this degree, but just beginning it. But you're going to have to sense this season after season after season after season after season in order to be able to sense these things and understand how they interact with you. Because of our unique natal charts, the effects of every single one of these subdeacons is going to be different. So you need to know how to channel these energies, to be aware of these energies, to project your consciousness outside of yourself, to see what's happening in your reality, separate from how it's affecting you. It's very, very complex. But to understand and know this in its entirety will express and explain to you the sign of Virgo and its energy. Once you understand this, then the keywords that you would Google online, you would understand that these are where the keywords come from. So that is the most easiest way to break it down. As Virgo season progresses, I learn more and more and more about it, So the sun is here at this degree. The moon is never on this degree. The only reason why I put the moon here is because the moon is currently in Cancer. So anywhere the moon is not to be indicative of the degree that it's in. I just put the moon here so I know what sign that it's in. So even though the sun is over here, and let's say when we have our new moon, I think it would be in between Capricorn and Aquarius. When we have the new moon, the moon is going to be over here in Virgo. On this chart, the sun and the moon won't be together, but I still know it's going to be a new moon. Why? Because like I told you, this energy here, this first quarter, represents the new moon. This line here is the solar energy line. The lunar energy line. This up here represents the lunar energy line. So knowing this and knowing this, even if whatever sign the moon is in, depending on where it is on this spectrum, I know exactly the energy the moon is expressing compared to what the sun is expressing. Complex, advanced, I know, I understand, which is why I want to be able to teach it to you. So if the sun's here, I know that in reference point, if I ever had to to reflect on certain things that happened at certain days, I know that if I know the date and what degree the sun was in, I can take everything that happened during that day and reflect on it, having a reference point of where the energy was transiting Virgo. You see what I'm saying? The other planets matter, but not when I'm trying to be aware. All of this is about conscious awareness, and that is that is dictated by the sun's placement and the moon's placement. I call this system, which I created because I've never found it anywhere, the Solun transit. There's an entity that I work with named Solun, and he is teaching me all of this, and I get these downloads and these guidances. So I know that if we're in 10 degrees, now I don't care which degrees between 10 and 12.5 we currently in, as long as I know it's in between there somewhere. I know that since we're here, I know that in the past, if I got to reflect, as long as I'm in Virgo season, I know exactly what that energy was expressing. And from here forward, it allows me to be able to project. Now, while I'm projecting, depending on the degrees or the days, I know exactly what the energy is experiencing. So when people are basically explaining what's happening in Virgo, if you don't get this meticulous down to the degree and the energetic differences, you are missing the point. I'm still understanding the intrinsic nuances from this point down currently because I'm still understanding the nuances of each one of these energies. So let's say back when we were in Gemini season, there was a lot of things about Gemini because of what was going on in my life that I missed. In order for me to get the full nuance of it, of what I did miss, I would have to wait till next year to traverse Gemini season. So it's a whole nother learning process. Everything I'm learning about Virgo will not be in its entirety. So after I go through the whole entire Zodiac, next year's Virgo season, I learn a whole new set. But I know that these structures do not change. I have a system and a structure in which I can follow to be aware of all of these things. The sun and the moon dictated this to me. If you ever watch whenever the moon and the sun is traversing, you will always be able to know that this is what the Zodiac's for. So whenever you're looking at the planets, like Saturn, Mercury, Venus, when they traverse Virgo, they are affected by these same energies, but it's a little bit different depending on the planet. But the best way to understand it is to understand first the massive duality that exists between masculine, the sun, and feminine, the moon. Understand those first. Understand the similarities and the meeting point, which built this whole entire thing. And then understand how it affects the other planets, which don't have any dual counterparts in this reality. Like, yeah, to a certain degree, Mars and Venus have opposite natures, but it's not the same like with the sun and the moon, because the sun on its own has a duality, the moon on its own has a duality, and then they have opposite natures. Mars and Venus just has opposite natures. Like, it's not the same like with the sun and the moon. Not only that, but the sun and the moon are tied to another. Mars and Venus aren't tied to another. Another one is Saturn and Jupiter. They're not tied to each other at all. The sun and the moon are the only ones in our planetary system that are having a magnificent dance between the two. So much so that their relationship to each other, their dance, their phases, has more of an impact on your whole entire reality than the rest. So in order to better understand this, you have to understand the properties of the sun and the moon as much as you possibly can, always revisiting it as life continues, because this energy affects everything, and every effect changes things. So even if you master this, you still have to observe the changes using this. So it's always going to be new stuff to apply this to. But I just think that by me briefly teaching this real quick, it can give you a simple idea of how this is constructed. I will put out more courses. I will put out more articles and more information to give you a complete rundown of all of this in due time. But I think that if I could just make it's 25 minutes, if I could make what I thought would be a short video that explains all of this, I think that for those who don't need its ultimate simplicity, can be able to jump in where they're aware of it and then utilize the information without having to kind of wait as I spoon feed many people. No insult, because we all got to start somewhere. But if you are well advanced to being able to resonate with this information and its complexity, I'd rather work with you where you're at than to force you to wait while I'm spoon feeding everyone along the way. So I hope this explains and gives a little bit of enlightenment. And I hope that this resonates with you. And if you have any questions to any capacity, to any degree, definitely feel free to ask. I have a Patreon that you can join. There's a free tier. All information that I would provide will be free eventually. But if you would like to support to allow me to keep doing this, you can join the Patreon and support. You get information that's quicker. You would get a lot of things about me breaking down behind the scenes, like how I get to all this information. Like there's a lot more if you're supporting that you will get, but eventually you are going to get a lot of the massive chunk of information for free. So don't feel entitled to spend, but I do welcome you to support. Until next time, peace and love.